Any questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Can I speak to you next?
Yeah, but let me just do questions and I'll take...
Wait, I got a question.
Go on, question.
Training MMA?
No.
Training?
Good for you.
Now, what are you training? You guys training?
Doing Muay Thai.
Muay Thai?
Yeah.
The
But
elbows and the...
all of that stuff. Next question, ladies and gentlemen.
Why are the Islamist pogroms not broadcast on national news, or they're not made, wide news?
Yeah. Isn't that a question that we should all be asking? Why is it that regular anti-Christian pogroms in Nigeria, Egypt, Pakistan, Iraq, Lebanon are not being broadcast in the national news? I'll tell you why. Because it feeds the narrative that the liberals don't want you to see. The liberals want you to follow their political dogma of celebrating diversity, saying that diversity is our strength. That's what the liberals want you to look at. So they take their giant telescope called the broadcast media and they find stories to feed you that narrative. Any narrative that suggests to you that the populations that we're importing from Pakistan are bringing with them anti-Christian bigotry that will lead to discrimination and persecution against Christians, they don't want to show you because it goes against their narrative that is pro uncontrolled, unfiltered immigration, and their narrative that every religion is just as good or bad as the next one and diversity is our strength. But if you knew, ladies and gentlemen, about the thousands of Christians that have been butchered in Nigeria and the regular anti-Christian riots and pogroms in Pakistan and in Egypt, you would be asking yourself the question, do we need to take a stronger line about these Islamist apologists that you're seeing that appeared on camera today? Here, I'm finishing, I'm landing. Here's what we need to do. Islamists and apologists for Islamists should be kicked out of the country. Those that oppose freedom of speech in Sweden should be kicked out of the country. Settlement in this country should be conditional on the grounds that you integrate into the values of this country and that we base those values on its historical Christian tradition. And that means, ladies and gentlemen, there is no scope for tolerating the prejudice that is coming against Christians from the Islamic community. Any other questions? I'll come back to you. Let someone else, and then I'll come back if you've got another one. Go on, bro.
Burn the Quran in a political statement.
Yeah.
Burn the Quran out of disliking Muslims, then that's wrong.
Yes.
But in each case, a Quran is still being burned.
Yes.
So isn't it equal in the same, whether your reasoning is for political statements to dislike them, the Quran is being burned. So what is the difference?
Right, so let me explain the difference. The difference is the intention. If someone is burning a Quran because they hate Muslims, then I condemn that action. Because if you're being motivated by hate, then as a Christian I have no choice but to oppose you. And there are racists who go around burning Qurans because they hate Muslims just because they're not whatever their nationality is. They're not Swedish or Danish or English. I condemn that. But the Christian from Iran had to flee for his life because he was a Muslim who became a Christian and had to become a refugee in Sweden. He wasn't burning the Quran because he hated Muslims. Many of his own family would be Muslims back in Iran. He was burning the Quran to raise awareness about the persecution of Christians in Iran. And that is a completely different kind of action because of its intention. Its intention is to raise awareness about suffering Christians. So I would ask all of you, which is more important? standing up for people that are being hanged and imprisoned and burned out of their homes because they are Christian, or protecting a book that you possibly don't even believe in? Go on, go on.
Sorry, this guy.
Then you, bro.
This guy who burned Quran in Swedish is not from Iran first.
Where is he from?
He's from Iraq.
Okay, my apologies, yes. Kurdish.
Second, he is not Kurdish as well. Second thing is he's also Christian, originally Christian, from a Christian village. And he's from the same governance that I'm from. He's from Nainoa, if you know Nainoa.
Yeah.
The part who came from is the Christian part. There are many villages and towns there called Karakosh. For anyone who wants to seek some information about that region, it's a Christian region. Till today, they are there. They have their community, they have their church, they have everything, and they have a lot of ancient church there.
Correction accepted. What's your question, please?
So, as just to say, this is not the right thing that you say, because I came from there. I know the truth.
What's your question, please?
So it's just a statement.
Okay, so let me reply to the statement. I'm happy to accept the correction. Clearly, some of the information that I read was wrong. However, does it change some basic facts? Are Christians persecuted in Iraq? Yes, they are. They were persecuted for 1400 years in Iraq under Islamic caliphates, under the Abbasids, under the Umayyads. Christians were denigrated to second-class citizens. Now, ladies and gentlemen, once again, you're going to hear a Muslim attempt to whitewash history. I invite you all, whether you're an atheist, whether you're a Muslim, a Jew, a Christian, or a Hindu, not to take my word about it, not to take his word about it. Go and speak to the Christians of Iraq. Ask the Christians of Iraq if they have been persecuted by Muslims. I know entire congregations of Iraqi Christians. I have friends who are Iraqi Christians, and all of them, without any exception, will tell you that the Christians of Iraq have been persecuted for 1400 years. So don't take my word for it. Don't take his word for it. Go and visit the Iraqi Christians and ask them for yourselves. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Go on.
They are there, and they are living.
Sorry, 1 second. Don't feed the troll. Focus on the conversation. Go on.
You know how to talk about the Islamist mob? The Islamist, the Khawarij, you know, the ISIS, the Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're
Yeah.
extremists.
Yeah.
I'm a normal Muslim, yeah?
Yeah.
I don't support what they're doing with Christians, you know why? Because I wouldn't want them to be to my
Okay. Is this a statement or a question?
No, I'm just telling you that.
Yeah. Okay. So let me reply to that. I want to make it clear, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not saying all Muslims have always persecuted Christians. That's obviously false and could easily be disproven. But what I am saying is that for 1400 years, Christians have been persecuted by Muslims. And the West has forgotten this because of our liberal propaganda by the lamestream media. There are good Muslims who would condemn this. I have one right in front of me, and I'm happy that he's here to condemn it. And he pointed out that persecution tends to come from the extremists like ISIS. But I simply challenge you, ladies and gentlemen, to rack up the actions of ISIS and then compare them to the actions of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire is recognized by Muslims as being a legitimate Islamic empire. There is no atrocity that was committed by ISIS that was not also committed by the Ottomans. desecration of churches, driving Christians from their home, kidnapping Christians, forcible conversion, taking of sex slaves, raping of women. ISIS did it, and the Ottomans did it, and you can check those historical facts for yourselves. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Go on. Go on, question.
100% what you're saying. But do you accept the persecution of Trinitarians against Unitarians over the course of, say, from the 4th century onwards?
Okay.
And also, would you like to debate about Trinity?
Later, yes. We'll happily do that later, if you hang around. Ladies and gentlemen, the question was, but what about when Christians persecuted people? When Christians persecuted other people, such as Unitarians who are not Christians, ladies and gentlemen. And this is always a question that is thrown at Christians. What about what you did centuries ago? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not talking about what happened centuries ago. I'm talking about what happened just this week in Pakistan, just this week in Nigeria, just this week in Egypt. That's what I'm talking about. Just what I'm talking about in India. And these apologist Muslims always want to change the subject. Ladies and gentlemen, I acknowledge that the church in the past did persecute other groups. I'm not denying it. I'm not celebrating it. I'm not trying to whitewash it. I'm happy to condemn it. The Muslims who have condemned me, however, were not happy to condemn it and were whitewashing it and were trying to change the topic and were accusing me of lying. Ladies and gentlemen, the difference is I can't appeal to the literature of the New Testament to persecute a Unitarian, but a Muslim can appeal to the Quran to persecute and discriminate against a Christian. Go on, your question.
You know about when the Ottoman Empire?
The Ottoman Empire, yeah.
Didn't Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab go to war with them? With these Muslims, they needed takfir on the Ottoman Empire because they were Sufis. Sufis, grave worshipping. They went to war with the Wahhabis, Salafis. Yeah. So Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, I'm pretty sure he did takfir, which means he excommunicated them from Islam. So our atrocity that they did after Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab did takfir, excommunicated them, they're not part of Islam after he did
Okay,
takfir.
so let me reply to the point. So the brother pointed out that Muslims fought against Muslims in the Ottoman Empire. And that's absolutely true. Muslims did fight other Muslims because one group of Muslims said that the other group of Muslims weren't Muslims, and that justified them attacking them. And that is exactly why, ladies and gentlemen, the Ottoman Empire spent 1,000 years, every year for 1,000 years, invading Christian lands, desecrating Christian churches, raping Christian women, kidnapping Christian children, and trying to conquer Christian land. You need to learn your history, O Christians. You need to recognize that there has not been a single year in 1400 years in which Muslim armies did not march against the church and try to conquer the church and subjugate Christians as dhimmis. That is your history, O Christian, and you must remember it. Not the lies of the liberal progressives who have whitewashed the history and lied to you about inclusivity in Hispania, Spain during the Muslim occupation of Spain, when in fact Christians were treated as second-class Christians in Spain for 700 years. Christians, the liberals telling the Christian that we should celebrate Islam's persecution of ourselves is like telling a Jew to celebrate Nazism. We simply must not do it. And we must remember our history and organize ourselves to stand up against those who persecute the church and those who apologize and obfuscate on that persecution. Go on, question.
So the issue is this, your point is
Taking
that,
a question, we're
all
not
right,
doing a debate.
how is
I'll
it
debate
that-
you later.
all
Are we
right,
clear
I'm
about
happy
that?
to debate you. I'm happy to debate
Are
you.
you,
but
are you
how
clear
is
about
it-
the terms?
How is it? Yeah, I'm going to go
Okay.
ahead and ask a question.
Ask a question.
How is it? Hey, Baba, how are you, sweetie? How is it that you just focus so much on injustices you claim Muslims have done, when the fact is we will never end because we can keep going back and forth pointing out what Christians have done? Why don't we instead focus on the message of Jesus, peace be upon him, who in fact never called humanity to worship himself, but rather called humanity to worship the Creator, to worship the God
What's
of
your
Mary?
question?
Why don't you do that? Why don't
Okay.
you focus on...
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to answer the question. Notice again, the Muslims want you to change the subject.
Something relevant.
They want to talk about something relevant because apparently driving 138 Christian families out of their homes in Pakistan this week is not relevant. I would say, ladies and gentlemen, it is relevant. It is relevant to every Christian. Notice how they want to change the subject. And that's why, Christians, you must have firmness in your heart to stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters. You must not give grounds to Islamists like this, who simply want to wipe the persecution of Christians under the rug so it can't be seen. We must scream from the rooftops for justice, for the blood of our brothers and sisters who are dying at the hands of Islamist terrorists and Islamist mobs in Pakistan, Nigeria, Egypt, and other parts of the Muslim world. He literally said that it wasn't relevant because in his mind, the deaths of Christians are not relevant. What does that tell you? It tells you that the liberal elites have allowed those into our country who have vile, toxic values and beliefs. And we must use the power of the state to tackle those vile, toxic beliefs and not give them an inch to air or to breathe in our cities until they are driven from our shores.